Hey everyone, this is DayTraderRockStar, and this is the high probability watch list for the week of November 26th. This is really the holiday shortened week. We just finished out Friday. Want to really just go back and again just give us an overview of the HPS site because it's an interesting look at last week's setups. Now you'll see a lot of the status is saying watching, and you know, every so often we're going to have a lot of stocks that gap up through our trigger levels. So the important thing about the HPS site is we program in, stocks that we want to buy, and we want to just kind of get alerted to them. Most of the stocks that we put in this are high probability setups that are coming down, taking most of the risk out of the entries. We're getting a lot of, in the case of a stock that we're buying, it's pulled back into a zone which we normally what we call a high probability zone, where multiple indicators are lining up, and then what we want to do is get that buy into that weakness and look for that bounce. In some cases we'll put a chart up, put it in the system, goes into the system, into the back end of the system, and really I want to show you this right here for a second. Let's actually get my screen up here. In this case of Occidental Petroleum, the buy trigger really was just a breakout above the previous Friday's candlestick, which was a nice candlestick on this. And what we're going to show you is what happens a lot of times. Let me bring this over here. There we go. I'm going to zoom it in a little. And here we go. Again, recognizing a couple different indicators on the chart. The big reversal candle we had last Friday. The oversold stochastics on the daily 60, the recognizable downward channel, and in some cases even the breakdown here, because I love trading the breakdown of the support level because it flushes out the weak traders. So everything pointed to a really great trade right here. Problem is that that following Monday we gap up. So in some cases we ended up I actually am in this trade and it's working out. It actually hit its target and would have been, is kind of a successful trade that's going to happen. I do expect it to continue to move up here and kind of get into an overbought level. So I am looking for some more upside early this week on Occidental Petroleum. But in some cases, due to the platform, sometimes you're going to get that gap up, and that's just things you have to deal with. Technology, just you can't deal with it. So one thing I want to do is to correct that. Is I'm actually going to start doing the HPS setups as they appear. If I do see that HPS setup on Friday happening, we're going to post that in the room. We're going to send that alert out saying there's an HPS on Friday. We're not going to wait for that gap up. If it happens on Wednesday or a Tuesday, we get alerted to an HPS setup through my research, just scanning the markets each and every day. I want to make sure I get those patterns in here, and we don't have to just wait for we don't want to be behind the trade where it gaps up the next day, because these are fantastic setups. So we did notice a couple of those that type of trade on the HPS site. You see a lot of the watching. So in the case with Occidental Petroleum, great trade, continues to move higher, but it kind of gapped up. Now I don't know if everyone's in it. The CBE, all right, this was textbook flag. We got into it. Definitely took it that Monday, just because it was such a good setup. But in the same situation, the buy zone 76.25 to 75. We kind of gap up out of that zone, so you don't get the official alert. But even though I'm in the room giving you the alert or sending out the emails when I get in, so you are getting informed of a good setup, and you can actually see how that ran out of there. So, still going to bring you the high probability setups, going to bring you the best setups I can find in the market. It's just in some cases you're going to get a gap up. Sometimes you're not going to get that automatic trigger due to the system being, doing for a price gapping up over a zone or something like that. But that's, we're going to try to work on that a little bit more. You're still going to have the setup, so it's really it's a plus just to have them in front of you. But I want to get them out to you, more interweek, interday. Anytime they set up, you're going to get them delivered to you. So look for that starting next week. Now, we just got off of a shortened week, holiday session, Thanksgiving, shortened day on Friday until it's Friday night, and I got some good setups for you for the upcoming week. So I can't wait to get to those. The first thing I always like to do is kind of review last week's setups because review and education is just as important as taking the trades and having successful trades. It's the education behind them, so you can find those setups on your own. And what I call high probability setups, or the setups I like to take, are just maybe 5 to 6 really good patterns that I like to always search for. A flag is a very important pattern, and that's what Cooper Industry was. It's just a perfect textbook flag. One of the best flags I've seen in the markets. I'm going to take a fast. I'm going to show you that fast CBE. And look at that flag. I mean, that was just an ideal, perfect textbook flag. It was the best bet going into this week, and it came out Monday, called as the best bet, and you can see the follow through each and every day. We ran up, continued to make new highs, and it continues to look fantastic. So I would consider that one a definite winner, and we took that trade, took profits off it, and continue to move higher. All right, so we go to JP Morgan. JP Morgan, just take a look at the chart. We have a beautiful upward trend line on JP Morgan. And again, the situation was it's entering a high probability zone. On Monday, it happened to have a little gap up, so it said it was just watching because it kind of gapped above the level I was looking at it. But it still, blew through the target. Again, it was a very good trade. It was a textbook upper channel trade, and you could see, closed out profit and a nice little reactionary move on that one. What we do is just X that out. You go to the next one. And here's Wells Fargo. The financial is very bullish on the Wells Fargo. This is a different type of pattern. This is a downward channel. And what I was liking here is just really a underlying trend line. There was a wedge pattern here, but there was also this underlying blue trend line, which I really thought that we had a good shot of coming down and hitting. And from that point on, we'll move up. And let's just kind of hit this arrow here. It updates the chart. And look how we pulled right down to this zone, triggered, the alerts went out, and it, as of, I think it was actually Thursday, and definitely today, we hit our target. Another beautiful trade, beautiful setup. This is what we always look for. This is my favorite. Downward channel, lower trend line, oversold stochastic dual setup, and you can see we came right down to that lower trend line. From that point on, you had plenty of time to get in on this one. And from that point on, it was just an easy trade. Pushed right up against the trend line, the downward trend line now. So trade could actually be a possible short going into next week. But we'll review the shorts that I have set up for next week. Click that off. You click this thing, and again, for those not familiar with the site, it's the HPS site. It's right underneath the video screen. A little tab there. Biogen, BIIB. This is a stock I sent out on the YouTube, and I've been doing just a few stocks on YouTube just for the general public. But this was, another nice downward channel. I was explaining the channel trade. Want to see us pull back down here, but not, again, we're not always looking at this as the possibility. This would be a textbook double bottom play right here. A stock that moves back down here in the stochastics before the stock price gets down there would be a buy signal. And in this case, that's exactly what happened. We actually had a pullback in this stock, and I want to just show it to you on the live screen here. And you can see this right here. See how the stochastics pulled back right where we were looking for it to pull back, and at that point, the price level pulled back, but we didn't pull back exactly to that buy trigger. But this is still a buy signal because the stochastic price divergence, where we're starting to see a higher low, and there's a series of lower lows. We get a higher low with the stochastics being oversold. Again, Biogen was one of those perfect textbook high probability setups, and these are high probability setups that are in a market that's being thrown around. There's but the patterns play out like you would not believe, and you see the concept behind it. It's actually recognizing those patterns, buying into the weakness, waiting for the signals, and then letting it rip and taking profits into that. This one really ripped higher. I mean, this one really ripped high. This was up 10 points. 10 points. 10 points. Huge play. There we go. Chesapeake Energy, still long this one, still like it. Again, this is a trade I held into Vegas. We were looking for a slight breakdown. Again, I would not be surprised to see a small breakdown through the support early in the week. That's what I was looking for. Put a buy trigger down here, 1650, 16 to 1550. I like it here. I'm in it already. I would love to have added it to it. It came very close. It's a couple pennies away from that entry level, and that's, again, what happens in some cases. But we did have that breakdown, and we did have that flush through, and now it's actually setting up for next week. We did make that trade live. Again, this is a tradingview.com site, so it really works well with some of the members who also put some of the comments on the charts. And you can see you're starting to turn back up. The momentum has shifted now, a very bullish momentum, and this was very close to a target area. So again, looking for this one to continue to move higher. I think this is a great setup going into next week. Just as a review, a trend line break or support line break does not mean that the stock has now collapsed and is now should be shorted. Sometimes quite the opposite. It's the weak hands being shaken out. And usually, as long as the indicators are lined up and you understand what the concept of why you're getting into it, typically that's a good area to get into. And you can see how that reacted off that. Now we're almost hitting the target on that. But do you see how exact these entries are? Even if you're off 10 cents off your entry, that's probably the most difficult point, is to kind of predict where you're going to come and get that turnaround. So, we try to keep a zone. The zone might be off 5 cents, 10 cents, but if you feel comfortable in the stock, I use what I call the scaling method. Meaning if I know that we're in a high probability zone that stochastics are pulled back, I'll start my entry. If we do get the trigger, I'll usually double up on it, and then we'll take profits on the rip. So you have to really always be hands-on. If the HPS site gives you that alert, then you know it's actually pulled back into that zone. If it doesn't give you an alert and I'm in it, then you get the emails either way. And we X that off. Go to the next one. Just minus that. CHK, Fastenal. Fastenal right now is going to be a focus stock for this week. It's going to be what we call a slanted W pattern. It's going to be actually the educational video I put out this week. It's called the slanted W pattern. It's one of the best setups. And again, you can see the notes here. This is our buy area. It actually pulled down a little underneath that buy area and bounced back into it. In some cases, you might have a little overshoot, but if you're comfortable in the methodology, sometimes again, you could be a few pennies off entry levels. The main thing here now, we're going to start to look at this, and you're going to see this stock as a focus stock next week. The main thing you're going to see is the pattern. It's called the slanted W pattern, and we'll zoom in here a little. And this is really, you can see this line right here represents one of the W's. Oh, here we go, right there. It's one line of the W. And the reason it's a slanted W is because it actually holds a higher low. It's not a textbook W like you would get in school, but you would get that little pullback here. It would maintain levels above the recent line, and then you would move up here. And that's your W pattern right there, and you're going to look for this move up. So again, today it really kind of triggered that slanted W pattern. We're starting to get some momentum up to the upside, and this is going to be definitely a high probability setup going into next week. Look for that on this week's video. Slanted W pattern. And just to review the rest of these, because these will, I'll take a lot of these off. You'll see all new ones on this. Here's the B8 Baker Hughes, and again, a very familiar what we call a lower trend line stochastic setup. It's basically you're buying off the lower trend line. You're just taking the risk out of the trade. And let's see, updates here. Kind of came down. You could probably extend this out a little. This is a setup from a couple weeks ago, and it still was active in the on the platform, so I kept it on there. The stop was 38. Never came down to the stop area. You could probably extend to that trend line. Let me move this line over here. You can extend that trend line. You can see how that trend line really held up really nice. We came right down to it. We got oversold. That was really the combination, and then bounced and kind of pushed right up into our target area. So again, I do put those stops underneath it. And as long as it stays within that pattern, it's a good quality stock. It's usually a great setup. The daily 60 stochastic, the lower trend line really is the big trigger here, and from that point on, you can see the nice move. And this one actually continues to move up, and I definitely see some more upside on this going into next week. And here's VALV. Now I haven't been looking at the VALV too much. I did, recognize a possible flag here, and in some cases you see those flags. It didn't alert me of an entry level. If we got down to this level, you could see why I would have liked that. It's called what we call a 1, 2, 3 pattern. 2 pivot areas, a third pivot area. You buy the fourth or the fifth. And we're going to look at, I do believe this one just ran. It did break out, so it was kind of it never really came down to our buy signal. Got very close to it. It still could work out. This trend line will still be active down here, but I'm probably going to end up I'm not a big fan of the VALV, so I won't be focused on this one. And then we're going to go to the last setup here. We'll go back here, and NCR. Again, I'm always big positive on NCR. And this was excuse me, I lost that one. NCR. You can see sometimes if I like a stock a lot, I'll put down best bet. And you can see the underlying trend line, just a recognizable trend line by two pivots, third pivot. The buy trigger was 22.65. And we kind of broke through that. We kind of pulled back a little, broke through, and then ripped up higher. Again, I was not in this trade. I know a lot of people on the site were in this trade. I didn't take this trade myself. But it actually worked out pretty good, It never came down to the stop, which was at 2050, which is support levels. And just kind of triggered here, chopped around, and then kind of broke out here. So that was the recap of last week's setups. Really, a lot of them really worked out good. Some of them gapped above their initial buy entries, but we jumped on them anyway. The CBE last week was really the key one. That was like textbook CBE. I have some great ones for this week. A really, really good one. I can't wait to show you on the next video. I'm going to send this video out as a review video, and just to show you a little bit about the HPS setups. The next video, again, goes to members only, and it has all the key setups for next week. Again, look for those continued type of setups. There's low risk, high probability entries. I always say, if you're not getting the HPS setups, then you lose. You're probably not taking full advantage of the market. Because the amount of research I do and put into these things, and only try to bring you the highest quality setups. You could try to do it on your own. I'm not being, I'm not boasting here or not, but I've been doing this for years and years, and you see the results. We want to get into quality stocks. We want to recognize these patterns. If you value your time, and you say, well, Johnny's doing a lot of good research here, he's bringing some really good setups, then the HPS the setups are going to be perfect for you. You get the alerts, you get the watch list every week, you get the review video, and you get the constant alerts when they set up. So if it's Tuesday and there's a setup, you get that email saying, hey, HPS setup coming up in Vodafone or Verizon. And you want to know that. Even if you're at work, this is where you want to be. So look forward to that next video. And I got a special educational video talking about the W pattern coming up next. And I'm looking forward to get that out to you. So let me move on. Have a good one.